In a prosperous village surrounded by lush green hills, there once lived a wealthy man named Mr. Edward. He was known far and wide for his booming business and his generosity to the townspeople. His home was a grand compound with tall wooden gates, a bustling yard, and many servants. By his side was his kind-hearted wife, Grace, a woman of gentle spirit who treated everyone with warmth and respect. Among their many servants was a young housemaid named Lydia. She had come from a distant town, and though she wore a mask of obedience, her heart was filled with envy and ambition. Grace, ever trusting, welcomed her like a daughter. But Lydia had other plans. One sunny afternoon, as the scent of pepper stew filled the air and the household bustled with activity, Grace called out from the kitchen, "Lydia, keep an eye on the stew. It mustn't burn." "Yes, madam," Lydia replied, bowing respectfully. But the moment Grace turned her back, Lydia's smile faded into a smirk. From beneath her wrapper, she pulled out a small pouch filled with dark powder. Whispering something only the spirits could hear, she sprinkled the powder into the pot. "Sleep well, dear madam, forever," she muttered. That night, as the family gathered for dinner, Grace collapsed, clutching her chest in pain. Her breath became shallow, and her eyes filled with confusion. Within minutes, she was gone. The compound fell into mourning. Mr. Edward was devastated. Days turned to weeks, and Lydia took every chance to comfort the grieving man. She brought him meals, offered soothing words, and stayed by his side longer than any servant would dare. "Sir, you must eat something," she would say gently. "Your strength is fading." "You have been so good to me, Lydia," he replied one evening. "I don't know what I would do without you." Soon, Mr. Edward began to lean on Lydia for more than just comfort. Whispers started to travel through the village. People spoke of how the housemaid now wore fine clothes, how she walked like the lady of the house. Before long, Edward announced to the elders his desire to marry her. The elders were stunned. "You wish to marry your housemaid?" they asked. "She has shown me loyalty and kindness when I had none left," Edward insisted. Though hesitant, the elders agreed, and preparations began. On the day of the wedding, the village square overflowed with curious onlookers. Drummers played, dancers swirled, and Lydia arrived in a gown of vibrant silk. As the village priest blessed the union, some women exchanged uneasy glances, sensing something unnatural beneath the celebrations. Time passed, and Edward's only son, James, returned home from the city. A cheerful young man, full of dreams and his mother's spirit, he was welcomed with joy. But Lydia saw him as a threat to the wealth she now claimed. One evening, she served him a meal with a smile too sweet to be true. Moments after eating, James clutched his stomach. "It burns, something's wrong," he cried. Panic erupted in the house as he collapsed in agony. "Call the healer," Edward shouted. But before help could arrive, James took his final breath. Lydia wept loudly, throwing herself to the ground, crying, "The spirits have taken him." "Oh, what sorrow!" None dared question her, though whispers among the servants grew louder. Then one morning, as Edward walked to his shop in the village, he met an old beggar by the roadside. Out of habit, He handed the man a coin, but the beggar grasped his hand firmly. "Beware your wife," the old man said, staring deep into Edward's eyes. "She is not what she seems." And just as suddenly, the beggar vanished into the crowd. Haunted by the warning and the strange deaths in his home, Edward sought help from a renowned traditional healer, Elder Silas, who lived deep in the forest. As the flames of incense rose and chants filled the air, Elder Silas spoke, "There is a dark presence in your home. Blood cries out from the earth. Your wife's hands are not clean. What must I do?" Edward asked, trembling. "She must drink the potion of truth," Silas replied. Together, they returned to the house. Lydia greeted them with surprise. But when she saw the healer, her smile faltered. "What is this?" she asked, stepping back. "You must drink," Silas said, handing her a calabash. "Let the spirits judge." Lydia refused, but the guards in the compound moved forward. She struggled and screamed, but they held her down and forced the potion down her throat. At first, she trembled. Then her eyes rolled back, and she wailed. "I did it. I killed them all. I wanted the wealth for my own children. It was meant to be mine." Gasps echoed through the house. Edward fell to his knees in disbelief. The servants looked on in horror. Lydia was dragged before the village elders, her confession still ringing in the air. The oldest among them stood tall and said, "You betrayed the man who fed you, the woman who trusted you, and the spirits who watched over this land. You will answer for your crimes." Lydia screamed as she was taken away, banished to the evil forest and never to return to the town ever again, her cries swallowed by the drums of justice. And so, peace returned to the home of Mr. Edward, though his heart carried scars too deep for time to heal. The villagers would tell his story for generations, of trust betrayed, of the evil that hides behind smiles, and of the spirits who always reveal the truth in the end. And that is how it happened.